In the heart of a distant space station, far beyond the reaches of Earth, a strange object floated quietly in the sterile laboratory. The lights above flickered slightly, casting faint shadows on the polished metal floors. Zevra, the alien medic, approached slowly, their green eyes wide with curiosity. They had worked in this lab for many years, treating wounded humans and aliens alike, but nothing like this had ever appeared before. The object pulsed softly, glowing with a faint green light that seemed almost alive. It hovered in midair without any visible support, rotating slowly as if it were observing Zevra as much as Zevra observed it. Zevra's 3 assistant medics hovered nearby, their expressions a mix of awe and worry. One of them, Lyra, whispered, "What is it? Is it safe?" Zevra did not answer immediately, instead studying the object carefully. Its surface was smooth but strange, covered in delicate patterns that seemed to shift when looked at from different angles. The patterns glowed faintly in rhythm with the object's pulse, like a heartbeat. Zevra reached out one hand, just a few inches from its surface, and felt a tingling sensation in their fingers. It was neither hot nor cold, but alive in a way that made their instincts scream caution. The human researchers who had discovered the object had left hastily, leaving only notes that warned of unknown properties. "Do not touch, do not experiment, monitor only," the notes read. But Zevra's curiosity burned brighter than any caution. They had always been fascinated by the unknown, by the mysteries of the universe. Yet even for Zevra, this was different. Something about the object made the air feel heavy, charged with anticipation. It was as if the object itself was aware of their presence, waiting for a choice to be made. Minutes passed in silence, broken only by the low hum of the lab's machinery. Zevra tilted their head, watching the pulse of the object quicken slightly as their gaze lingered. The assistants shifted nervously, unsure if they should intervene or stay silent. Lyra muttered again, "It might be dangerous. We should call the humans back." Zevra shook their head. "No, not yet. We need to understand it first," they said calmly, though their own heartbeat was faster than usual. The object seemed to respond to Zevra's words, pulsing brighter for a brief moment. It was small, no bigger than a human fist, but it carried a presence that made the entire room feel alive. Zevra remembered stories from the old archives of alien artifacts that had shaped entire civilizations. They remembered how hesitation had saved lives in countless situations. Yet they also knew that curiosity often led to discovery. The tension built in the lab as Zevra weighed their options. To touch or not to touch, to interfere or observe. Every second stretched longer than the last. The assistants watched silently, sensing the weight of the decision. They could see the struggle in Zevra's eyes, the battle between caution and curiosity. Finally, Zevra took a slow, deliberate step forward. The object floated higher for a fraction of a second, almost as if it were reacting. A soft vibration filled the room, felt more than heard. Zevra extended one hand, fingers trembling slightly. They paused just inches away, feeling the tension of the moment. This was the first real test, the first choice that could define everything to come. The lab felt smaller, quieter, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Even the lights above seemed to dim in anticipation. Zevra took another careful step, and the pulse of the object grew stronger. It was alive, and it was waiting. The assistants held their breath, unsure if this decision would save them or put them all in danger. Zevra's mind raced with questions, fears, and possibilities. For the first time in their career, they felt the true weight of discovery. The unknown was no longer distant or theoretical. It was right in front of them, glowing, breathing, watching. And Zevra knew that whatever they chose next would change everything. Zevra froze, their hand hovering just above the glowing object. A soft hum filled the lab, almost like a heartbeat, growing louder with each second. The assistants exchanged worried glances. Lyra whispered, "It's reacting. We should step back." Zevra shook their head slowly, their green eyes locked on the strange pulse. Curiosity battled caution in every fiber of their being. Every instinct told them to retreat, yet something inside urged them to stay, to understand. The object's patterns shifted, forming delicate shapes that seemed to dance across its surface. It was mesmerizing, almost hypnotic, and Zevra felt their minds stretching, trying to comprehend it. A strange warmth spread through their fingers as if the object recognized their presence. Zevra's assistants murmured warnings, but Zevra did not flinch. They had faced dangers before, but this felt different, unpredictable, alive. A sudden flicker of light made the lab feel colder. The object's pulse quickened, glowing brighter in short bursts. Zevra could feel the tension in the room tighten like a wire. One assistant, Core, stepped closer, whispering urgently, "We don't know what it can do. It might be dangerous." Zevra's mind raced, imagining every possibility, every risk. Could it harm them? Could it communicate? Could it be sentient? The questions hung in the air, unanswered, yet compelling. Seconds passed like hours, each one heavy with suspense. The assistants held their breath, their alien features pale under the flickering light. Zevra's heartbeat echoed in their ears, loud enough to drown out the soft hum of the object. Finally, Zevra lowered their hand slightly, keeping their fingers just inches from the surface. A faint vibration ran through the lab, felt more than heard. It was as if the object was sensing their hesitation. The assistants whispered, tension in their voices. "Maybe we should leave it, let the humans handle it." Zevra shook their head, knowing that stepping back now would be a missed chance. They studied the patterns on the object, trying to find meaning. Each pulse, each glow seemed deliberate, intelligent. Zevra realized that hesitation was not weakness, it was careful consideration. They had to understand before acting, to respect the unknown. Yet the pull to touch it, to connect, grew stronger with each passing moment. The object's energy seemed to respond, as if inviting, almost begging them to engage. Zevra's hand trembled slightly, torn between fear and curiosity. The assistants watched silently, sensing that a decision would come soon. The lab felt suspended in time, every light, every shadow frozen. Then, a faint whisper of energy ran along Zevra's fingertips. It was gentle, almost like a greeting. Zevra's hesitation turned to resolve, their mind made up. They would touch it, but with caution, with respect. Whatever happened next would shape not only their future, but possibly the future of every life on the station. And so Zevra leaned closer, their hands steady now. The object pulsed faster, glowing brighter. The suspense was unbearable, a silent tension that filled every corner of the lab. The assistants could only watch, their hearts pounding. Zevra's eyes never left the glowing surface. The moment of contact was near, the unknown waiting silently. And in that instant, the alien medic's hesitation became the first step toward discovery. Zevra took a deep breath, their hand hovering just above the glowing object. Every nerve in their body tingled with anticipation. The assistants held their breath, frozen in a mix of fear and excitement. The lab felt alive, charged with energy that seemed to hum through the metal walls. Slowly, Zevra's fingers brushed the object's surface. A spark of light shot along their arm, gentle but electric. The object pulsed stronger, brighter, as if it had sensed the contact. The assistants gasped, instinctively stepping back. Core whispered, "It's responding." Zevra nodded, heart pounding, feeling a warmth spread through their limbs. It was alive, and it was aware of them. The surface of the object rippled like water, forming new patterns that seemed to flow with meaning. Zevra studied them carefully, trying to understand. It was unlike anything they had seen before. The pulse of energy ran along their fingers, a silent language. It spoke without words, and Zevra felt a connection forming, fragile but real. Suddenly, the glow flared, casting long shadows across the lab. Lights flickered and alarms hummed softly. The assistants froze, unsure if danger had come. But Zevra remained calm, letting their instincts guide them. The object's pulse slowed, stabilizing as if approving their touch. Zevra felt an odd sensation in their mind, like a whisper of thoughts not their own. Images flashed before their eyes, distant planets, unknown creatures, and strange skies. The object was showing them a glimpse of something bigger, something alive beyond comprehension. Lyra stepped forward, awe in her eyes. "It's showing us something." Zevra nodded slowly, their hands still on the surface. Every pulse, every flicker felt intentional, intelligent. The assistants exchanged glances, realizing that hesitation had been necessary. The object was more than a tool or artifact. It was a being, aware, and curious. Zevra's mind raced, considering the implications. If they touched it wrong, could it harm them? Could it communicate further? Could it understand empathy and care? The lab was silent except for the soft hum of the object and the assistant's quiet breathing. Zevra slowly moved their other hand closer, feeling the gentle energy between them. It was like holding a living spark, fragile yet powerful. The assistants watched, tense but captivated. The alien medic's caution had turned into trust, tentative but growing. The object pulsed again, brighter than ever, almost like a heartbeat. Zevra realized that this first touch was not just physical. It was a bridge, a connection between species, a step into the unknown. Every second felt monumental, and the lab seemed suspended in time. And then, the object shifted slightly, floating closer to Zevra's chest. It seemed to respond to their emotions, to their calm curiosity. The assistants whispered in disbelief, "It's alive, fully alive." Zevra smiled faintly, knowing this was only the beginning. The hesitation had ended, the first contact made, and the story of the alien medic and the mysterious object had officially begun. Zevra stepped back slightly, their hands still glowing faintly from the contact with the object. The lab felt alive, charged with a strange, pulsing energy. The assistants watched nervously, unsure what would happen next. Suddenly, the object reacted violently. A green mist spread across the room, swirling like smoke in slow motion. The lights flickered wildly, shadows dancing along the walls. Zevra coughed as the mist brushed past them, feeling a tingling sensation in their skin. It was not harmful, yet it carried a presence, like the breath of a living being. The object's glow intensified, and its pulse became erratic. Images flashed in Zevra's mind, strange landscapes, alien cities, and creatures they had never imagined. It was communicating, but not in words. The assistant stepped closer, mesmerized and cautious at the same time. Lyra whispered, "It's showing us something, but I don't understand it." Zevra nodded slowly, their mind racing to interpret the patterns and flashes. The being was alive, sentient, and more intelligent than any artifact they had encountered. A sudden vibration ran through the lab, felt through the floor beneath their feet. The object floated higher, spinning gently, its surface forming shapes and symbols in the air. Zevra reached out instinctively, feeling the pulse of energy respond to their hand. It was like a conversation without words, a silent understanding forming between them. Kor stepped back, fear in his eyes. "We don't know what it can do. It's more than we imagined." Zevra's gaze never left the object, curiosity overpowering fear. The being pulsed brightly, almost pleading, and Zevra realized it wanted connection, not harm. The mist began to clear slowly, revealing the lab bathed in a soft green light. The assistants were in awe, whispering among themselves. The object's pulse slowed, calming as Zevra mirrored its rhythm with careful hand movements. It was intelligent and aware, testing them, waiting for trust. Zevra felt a strange empathy growing, a bond forming in the shared silence. The first fear was replaced with understanding, tentative but undeniable. Every flicker, every glow, every pulse of energy held meaning, and Zevra knew patience was key. Suddenly, the object shifted again, revealing a small, translucent core inside. It pulsed like a tiny heart, delicate yet strong. The assistants gasped in disbelief, realizing this was not just an object. It was alive, a being, with thoughts and feelings of its own. Zevra's hand hovered over the core, careful and respectful. The moment was fragile, suspended in time, the first true communication between species. The tension in the lab remained thick, but hope and wonder began to shine through. Zevra whispered softly, "We can help each other. We can learn." The object responded with a gentle glow, as if understanding. The alien medic's hesitation had led to the first sign of trust, and the story was only beginning. Zevra stepped back from the glowing object, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on them. The lab felt heavier now, charged with energy and uncertainty. The assistants whispered among themselves, their voices low and tense. Lyra said softly, "We don't know what it can do. Maybe we should stop." Kor nodded, eyes wide. "It's alive, but is it safe? What if it's dangerous?" Zevra shook their head slowly, green eyes fixed on the pulsating being. "This is not a question of fear," they said calmly, though their heart raced. "It is a question of choice." The object pulsed rapidly, almost impatiently, as if urging Zevra to decide. Every second stretched, tension building with the rhythm of the mysterious glow. Zevra's mind raced, imagining every possible outcome. If they touched it wrong, it could be harmed. If they hesitated too long, the opportunity to understand it might vanish. The assistant stepped closer, hesitant but attentive. Zevra could feel their doubt and fear, yet also their hope. They were all part of this moment, and every action mattered. The being inside the glowing orb seemed aware of their thoughts. Images flashed in Zevra's mind, distant planets, strange creatures, and glowing cities. It was as if the object was showing the possibilities, the paths that could be chosen. Zevra felt a pang of responsibility. This was no longer just a test of curiosity. It was a moral choice, a question of empathy and trust. The assistants watched silently, realizing that Zevra alone held the decision. Zevra closed their eyes briefly, feeling the pulse of the being in their mind. They could sense intelligence, awareness, and even fear within it. It was not just an experiment, a mystery to solve, or a specimen to study. It was a life, fragile yet strong, waiting for understanding. Zevra's hesitation turned to resolve, a careful, deliberate choice. They extended both hands slowly, moving with respect and calm. The assistants held their breath, tense but silently trusting Zevra's judgment. The object pulsed brighter, sensing their intent. It responded gently, allowing their hands to hover closer. The lab was silent except for the soft hum of energy. Zevra realized that this moment defined them. Not as a medic, not as a scientist, but as a being capable of trust and empathy. They whispered softly, "We will not harm you. We will learn together." The object's glow softened, almost like a sigh of relief. The assistant smiled faintly, seeing the tension ease. Zevra's decision had bridged the gap between species, and in that choice, the first true connection with the unknown had been made. The moral dilemma was not over, but the first step had been taken. Zevra understood that every touch, every action, would now carry weight. The object pulsed steadily, a sign of trust forming. For the alien medic, hesitation had been necessary, and now, empathy, courage, and wisdom guided the next actions. The lab was alive with quiet hope, and the story of Zevra and the sentient object continued to unfold. Zevra's hands hovered above the object, feeling the steady pulse of energy beneath their fingertips. The lab was quiet, except for the soft hum of machinery and the rhythmic glow of the object. It seemed to respond to their presence, intelligent and aware. The assistants watched in awe, unable to speak, their eyes wide as they observed the exchange. Suddenly, the object shifted, and a translucent core emerged from its center. It glowed softly, casting gentle green light across the lab. Zevra leaned closer, noticing the core pulsing in perfect rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. The assistants whispered, "It's alive, fully alive." Zevra nodded, their mind racing to understand. This was no longer an artifact or a strange anomaly. It was a living being, aware, curious, and communicating in ways beyond words. Images and sensations flowed into Zevra's mind. They saw distant planets with glowing cities, creatures with strange, flowing shapes. They felt emotions, not their own, but the being's: fear, curiosity, and longing. Zevra realized that the object had intelligence, understanding, and even empathy. It was reaching out, trying to connect. The assistants stepped closer, hesitant, sensing the gravity of the moment. Every pulse and flicker of light carried meaning, waiting to be understood. Zevra's hands moved gently over the core, careful not to harm it. The being responded with soft light, almost like a sigh of relief. It pulsed brighter, showing patterns that Zevra recognized as symbols of life, communication, and trust. The assistants gasped in amazement, whispering among themselves. Zevra smiled faintly, realizing that patience and respect had opened a bridge between species. This revelation was more than discovery. It was connection. They could communicate, not with words, but with understanding and empathy. The being shifted slightly, forming shapes in the air that glowed like ancient writing. Zevra focused, feeling the messages flow into their mind. It was asking for help, but not in fear, more in hope, a desire to learn and grow. Zevra nodded slowly. "We will help you together," they whispered. The object pulsed brighter, as if confirming their intent. The assistants watched silently, sensing that history was being made. The lab felt alive, filled with quiet wonder and anticipation. Zevra realized that hesitation, caution, and careful thought had been necessary. Now trust and empathy guided their actions. The object had revealed itself fully, intelligent, sentient, and aware. The bond between Zevra and the being was fragile, but real. Every movement, every pulse, every glow carried meaning. The story of the alien medic and the sentient object had reached a turning point. The revelation was clear. This was not just a discovery, it was a new life, a new connection. And the next choices would shape the future of the lab, the beings within it, and perhaps the wider universe. Zevra stood silently, hands hovering over the glowing core of the object. The lab was quiet, filled only with the soft hum of energy and the faint light pulsing rhythmically. The assistants watched, tense and awed, knowing that whatever happened next would define them all. Zevra's mind raced, weighing the risks and possibilities, every instinct telling them to act carefully. The object pulsed steadily, almost like it was waiting for Zevra's choice. It had revealed intelligence, awareness, and a fragile trust. To touch it wrong could harm it. To hesitate too long could waste the connection. The assistants whispered softly, "It trusts you. It is alive." Zevra nodded, taking a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility. Slowly, Zevra placed both hands gently on the object. It responded immediately, pulsing brighter and warmer. A rush of energy spread through the lab, but it was not dangerous. It was alive, welcoming, curious. Images flashed through Zevra's mind. Distant planets, alien skies, glowing cities, and beings of every shape. The object communicated with emotions, patterns, and light. Zevra understood that trust had been earned. They could guide this being safely, not as a tool, but as a friend. The assistants stepped closer, awe in their eyes. Kor whispered, "It's responding to you, Zevra." Zevra nodded, feeling a deep connection. The lab seemed to hold its breath as the object pulsed brighter. It had chosen to accept them as a partner in understanding. Zevra realized that this was the first step in something far greater than themselves. It was a new chapter for the station, for humanity, and for life beyond the stars. Slowly, Zevra guided the being away from the center of the lab. Every pulse, every flicker of light, every vibration carried meaning. The assistants followed silently, respecting the bond forming before their eyes. The object shifted slightly, glowing gently, almost like it was smiling. Zevra knew that hesitation had been necessary, but courage, empathy, and patience had allowed them to connect fully. The lab was filled with quiet hope, a new beginning. Zevra whispered softly, "We will learn together, we will protect you." The object pulsed once more, bright and steady, a sign of trust and understanding. The alien medic had faced the unknown, made the right choice, and formed a bridge between worlds. History had been made, not through force or fear, but through careful thought, courage, and empathy. The being was alive, aware, and safe. And Zevra's story, the story of hesitation, trust, and discovery, would be remembered across the stars.